You're good.
Good. 3, 2, 1. Matt Dorsey from SpartanMag.com here at the Rivals 100 Challenge in Baltimore, Maryland with Josh Helmholdt, Rivals Midwest Recruiting Analyst. Lots of talent on here, Josh. I want to kind of get your take on some of the guys that Michigan State sort of focused on from a Spartan recruiting perspective. 4 kids from Michigan here, but really probably 2 that Michigan State, maybe 3, depending on how you look at it. Obviously, Donnie Corley, then Lavert Hill, and Dalen Hayes maybe a little bit as well. First, let's talk about Corley. Obviously, you've been following his recruitment pretty closely, and your thoughts on the Spartans and their situation there?
Yeah, you know, Michigan State, Tennessee were the 2 teams he gave me here a month and a half ago or so at the Rivals camp. He said he knew was going to be in that final group. He's actually not made a final group, and he may not make a final group because he's making his decision likely in July. So Ohio State's definitely crept back in there. They're definitely a contender. Of those 3 schools, though, you got to like where Michigan State sits. I mean, if he decided today, I do think it would be the Spartans.
Okay. You know, obviously, let's just say what if, so to speak. What if Donnie Corley does decide to come to Michigan State? Obviously, big get, one of the top players in Michigan. How might that impact their chances with somebody like Lavert Hill? I mean, I know they've offered Lavert Hill. They like him. He's a Penn State commitment. You've probably had some, you know, contact with Lavert. You know, he's obviously saying he's committed to Penn State. You know, but you know, we know in today's society, you know, where kids start out and all where they end up. So.
Lavert is saying all the right things regarding his Penn State commitment publicly, that he's 100% solid, but 2 things. 1, he visited Michigan State most recently, and 2, him and Donnie are very close. So where Donnie chooses to go to school, I do think will impact Lavert Hill. I do think he gives that school a very strong look because of how tight they are, and especially if it is a place like Michigan State, which is really pushing hard for him.
Yeah, I've kind of told people, you know, on our website about don't really think about Lavert Hill right now until Donnie Corley makes his decision. Then obviously Donnie Corley becomes a Spartan, then you can kind of look at the Lavert Hill recruitment. Dalen Hayes is the other kid, USC commitment, and you know Michigan State's kind of been in touch with him, and he was up at Michigan State's spring game, you know, sort of checking things out there. Obviously, he's been committed to USC for quite some time. You know, but you know, Michigan State's kind of just, you know, hiding in the woods there a little bit, you know, letting him know. I mean, you got a little bit more of a better touch on Dalen Hayes probably than I do. What's your thoughts on his recruitment and how it could possibly play out?
Yeah, same thing as Lavert in that publicly he's saying all the right things. Really, you know, throws up the victory for Trojan sign, you know, as often as he gets. Really telling people that, you know, he's going to be at USC, and that he's very said today he's 110% committed. The longer he is in the state of Michigan, though, the more the opportunity is for a team like Michigan State. I think Notre Dame could get back into this. They were certainly a team that was very high in his list early on, but specifically Michigan State. After that visit, I know a lot of the Michigan State recruits and commitments were on Dalen Hayes pretty hard. I know what he's saying publicly. If you're asking my opinion, I think that privately he's definitely having some thoughts about Michigan State.
Okay, well those guys are obviously committed to other schools right now. Let's talk about the guys that are committed to Michigan State recently and the guys that could commit soon, obviously Midwestern guys. Josh King, big get for Michigan State today, #1 player in Illinois, Rivals 100, number 69. You've obviously seen him, you've looked at him. What are some of the things you like about Josh King and what he brings to the table?
Built like a small forward, but is a state champion wrestler. He's a really unique prospect, very long off the edge. He's quick, he's athletic, and he knows, you know, he understands leverage, and that's what the benefit of being a state champion wrestler gives you. So a lot to like. Obviously, he was recruited by everybody, very highly sought kid, and a great grab for Michigan State.
So he made his decision today. Sunday, we have a couple more, you know, another big commitment that Michigan State is hoping to bring into the fold, and that would be Austin Robertson. You know, obviously defensive end like Josh King, but maybe a little bit different as far as their style and what they bring to the table. Your thoughts on Austin Robertson, his recruitment, and what you think about him as a player?
Austin's a little bit more bigger frame kid than Josh is. You know, a week and a half ago after talking with him, I felt that the choice was going to be Michigan State, but I haven't spoken with him since he made visits to both Notre Dame and Michigan. Those are his top 3, Michigan, Michigan State, Notre Dame. You know, at this point, based on what I know, I expect it to be Michigan State. but just didn't get a good enough feel to see if those last 2 visits changed his mind at all.
Right. Okay. And then Monday, got a couple things going on Monday as well. We have defensive tackle Naquan Jones of Evanston High School, and Michigan State again involved with Naquan. And you know, my sources are saying that Michigan State's sitting in a pretty strong position. I think getting Josh King probably just enhanced that a little bit today. Your thoughts on Naquan and his recruitment, and what do you like about him?
We're sounding like a broken record here, and it's not for the purposes of this video. I mean, this is just what you know, the feedback, the info we're getting is saying. Mike Panasiuk, you know, and Naquan Jones. I've heard Michigan State is going to grab both of those. So I can't get any more detailed about that without giving away some sources, but that's what I'm hearing. And again, obviously we're in Baltimore. We're a little bit disconnected than we were a couple of days ago when we were, you know, in the Midwest. But it looks like you know, the big weekend that Michigan State fans were hoping for. It looks like it's going to come to fruition.
Okay, let's just play. You know, Josh King, Austin Robertson, Naquan Jones, Mike Panasiuk. Michigan State gets that. What does that do for sort of the Michigan State as far as what does it say about Michigan State and their recruiting and their sort of pull in the Midwest, and what they're kind of Mark D'Antoni sort of doing there on the defensive side of the ball?
Certainly. I mean, you've seen what the momentum has done. You know, the momentum started in April with Messiah DeWeaver, and it's just continued to build. You know, it can only build so far because you can't sign, you know, 50 guys in a class. So what it does allow them to do is start turning their attention to 2017 and really go guns a-blazing on 2017 while other teams are still focused on wrapping up 2016. It gives them that advantage, and it gives them, you know, great players want to play with other great players. When you get 4-star Naquan Jones, 4-star Austin Robertson, 4-star Josh King to go with all the other, you know, top guys that they've got in this class, it really, those final spots that they have available, they're going to be able to pick and choose, I believe.
Right. And hey, you know, you look at it from a Big Ten perspective. You know, obviously Ohio State's doing their thing. You know, Michigan State, you know, doing very well in the recruiting trail. You know, Penn State and James Franklin's going to get his players. Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, he's on his camp tour right now, trying to get players. You know, the Big Ten East is not going to be a cakewalk here for, you know, I mean, people talk about the SEC West and things like that, but the Big Ten East just looks to be, if you look at it from a recruiting perspective, just heavy hitters getting big-time players, you know. I mean, we were talking about the other day. I mean, look at the Big Ten East right now with guys like Shalik Calhoun and Joey Bosa and Anthony Zettel. You got some, you know, beasts on the defensive line. It looks like, you know, with this crop of Michigan State guys, Jonathan Cooper, you see here from Ohio State, tremendous prospect as well. You know, it looks like, you know, the Big Ten is doing a really good job of, you know, addressing their needs and, you know, trying to be there right with the SEC and stay up top as far as, you know, college football.
Yeah, and we know we're recruiting guys. We know it's not just about the Jimmies and the Joes. That's an important piece of the puzzle. The next step is the X's and O's. I think, you know, all Big Ten fans want to see the Big Ten in general continue to be strong. Obviously, the national championship for the conference, I think, was good for the reputation of the conference, and the way they're recruiting is kind of you know, further that momentum. So it's a good time for the Big Ten, especially the Big Ten East, as you mentioned.
Okay. Again, Matt Dorsey here with Josh Hemmel in Baltimore at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge, Rivals 100, top prospects from all over the nation. You're listening to SpartanMag.com and Spartan Mag VCast with Josh Hemmel. Thank you.